Okay, we're going to be working on Kydex sheaths today. Got one in here. We're using the hydraulic press as the Kydex press. It's super nice. Just got to use some trickery with the stop switch and some clamps. So right now this one has been in there for 20 minutes. We're going to take it out. Sam, you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Engage controls. Squeeze. Undo. And it sticks a little bit, so it ripped off my fancy double-sided tape plywood press, but that's okay. These are little like paring knife EDCs that we're working on right now. So this one I'm going to set aside. Now we're going to do another one in the press. This will be the next one. So I have the oven set to basically 380 Fahrenheit. These are Boltaron sheaths, not Kydex. They're super similar, but I think there are some differences as far as like the temperature range that you're supposed to work them at, and also the way they sand. These seem a little bit less melty. Still soft and melty, but not as bad as Kydex. Wow. In here, I've got... Shit, I didn't put anything in there. In here, I will have one of the sets. So we just drilled and riveted two of them together. That keeps them in place. I've got a piece of like wood from my house in there. So some people use like t-shirt presses, whatever. What are they called? The things that people press designs into t-shirts and it heats them up and everything. That's a smart way to go. We don't have anything like that. We're using a kiln. It's set to 380 and it's going to be anywhere between like 380 and 390. And why I have a piece of wood in there is it needs some way to conduct the heat evenly. If I just took the material and threw it onto the kiln floor, it would be too hot because this stuff will conduct directly 380 degrees to the sheath material. If I put a piece of metal in there, same thing. It's just too high of thermal conductivity. So the piece of wood, it's just like the right amount of like heat transfer. It's not hot actually, it's warm. And it doesn't actually burn because we're only at 380 degrees. So we get a nice toasty sheath instead of something that melts. Flavor. Seasoned flavor. So I put this in here. It's going to be about 3 to 5 minutes each side. We'll flip it over once just to get it even. This is the setup that we have. It's the hydraulic press that I got working, that I got from Will Brigham. It's got a proximity switch basically right here, and then this comes down. So if I hit the switch, it stops right there. So it gives it a nice perfect squish. This is like the best setup that we've ever had for a Kydex press. Before, we've like tried to jerry rig like freaking like through bolts through here and pivot it and stuff. It's horrible. I mean, you can easily make a better press like hinge setup than this, but I usually work with what we have, and our stuff has always been ghetto. So we've got nice plywood that I probably stole from the house somewhere, and we've got the stop switch set to squish it at the right thickness. And then the reason why we have these clamps right here is because once it hits this stop switch, it's not applying any more pressure. The ram's just kind of sitting there. And this has enough spring back where it's going to go back up. So you'll notice it kind of like cycles between as it like squishes and then it springs back up, and then it swishes again and it springs back up. So if we just squished it, turned it off, and left it like that, it would kind of spring back and you would lose that clamping force. So we squish this and then we clamp it in place. Future designs will have actually steel plates that we don't have to glue or tape onto the actual dies, and you'll be able to swish it and then just use like little hinges and clasps to just like lock it in place. And then you could take out a set, put a new one in. So you could do like multiple at once. That's the goal, but we never do like a lot of sheaths at once. This is the first time that we're doing a set of sheaths. So that's where we're at. I'll flip this one over. So you can see it's pretty good. 380 is nice. If you leave them in there for too long, it starts getting a little bit melty, which is fine. It probably is running a little hot for the thickness of the material that we have, but the hotter it is, the more conformity that we're getting. So if you look at these knives, the feature that we have is this little closed heel, it needs some sort of like physical feature to hold onto. So if this is a fully open heel like a normal paring knife, it doesn't have anything to actually hook the sheath in place. It would just slide out really easily. Whereas like when you have when you have a little tiny feature like this, it still is enough. So once you get the fit up right, you get a nice click and stays on there pretty well. And it doesn't take too much force to take out. So I think it's about ready. Yeah, that's pretty good. Next knife, I think is this one. These are all labeled, right? 2, 2, 1, 1, 0. Okay, it's this one. So Sam's gonna help me close the kiln door. He's got the clamp for the backside. I just use one glove, knife in the free hand. Ready? Go over here, just line it up like that. And I squish with my left foot. Squish. Clamp. And that's my off switch. So this press has a control system where it's just automatic. You press down, it goes down, you let go, it goes up. I would like to have a dual like function where you press down, press up, press down, press up. But this control system is super nice for forging. For Kydex pressing, it's okay. I mean, it's great, but it could be a little bit optimized. You know, I say that, but it actually probably doesn't even need to be optimized. We just need better actual, like
specific dies.
Yeah, that's the problem. But this works.
Yeah.
Works just fine.
Our particle board foam thing isn't optimized.
Should this have been in the ghetto video?
It should have. There's so many ghetto things that we forgot for that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while that one is sitting, oh yeah, I'll set a timer. 20 minutes. While that one is, it's not curing, whatever. It's setting, it's drying. It's what, I don't even know the word. Anyways, we've got these here that are ready. Basically, I have these rivets, but I like to be able to like separate the two halves apart and be able to work on it and then clean it all out. Because, for example, like this one was done without that. It was just riveted together and then just all shaped as one piece. It works, but it's kind of annoying to clean out all the little like particles in there. You'll eventually get them all out with a compressed air and smacking all the pieces out, but it's just annoying. And plus, all the seams and stuff, like you have to get a piece of sandpaper in between this just to deburr it, and then you get more particles in there, and it's just never a really super clean solution. So what we're gonna do is use these temporary placeholders, these like, what are they called? Chicago screws. So we drill for the Chicago screws, we shape it all like that, then we can take it apart, clean it all up, deburr everything, put it back together, and it's a nice clean sheath. So I've got it lined out. I just place like a little rivet there, get it fairly close to the edge of the blade so that it holds it nice and tight. And I just mark where the centers are. So I do 6, boom, boom, boom. This one right here is kind of critical because if you put this too far back, which is what I did on like my very first run many years ago when I first graduated college, it worked, but there's too much stress in this area right here, and it'll just basically like rip itself apart. So you need good pressure, good tension right there to hold it, but you want it so that this can actually come apart a little bit and ease out that heel. Otherwise, yeah, you'll just end up like trying to split the rivet and the sheath material right there. I don't know if this is like the proper way to do it. I've just been told like don't have it overhanging like too far backwards. Put it a little bit more forward. I'm sure I'm going to get somebody who's going to tell me the right way to do it in the comments. But this is the way that we're doing it right now. So I'm just going to drill all the temporary holes for these, and then later poke them out to be the larger size for the rivet.
Oh, I marked that one. Is it okay?
Oh, you did this one?
Yeah.
I'm going to adjust 2 points. This one can be a touch closer, and this one is just slightly too close. But otherwise, looks good to me. So now, probably shouldn't drill it with a knife in there.
Probably not.
So now I've got a 3/16 drill bit in there. The Chicago screw is actually 192 thousandths in diameter. This is 187, so it's undersized. To do it properly, you'd have to get the right drill bit, but whatever. I eyeball everything. Okay, all drilled out. I freehand everything because it's sheath material. It's so soft. You just don't want to do this with anything that can like seriously cut you. Now, so I've got a 189 reamer, still too small here, but I'm just gonna run it in there. And then I give it a little bit of wiggle, just 5 degrees each side. And that's enough to, God damn it, where is the screw? That is just enough to pop one of these in. And later these are all going to be drilled to the bigger ones anyway, so like if this hole is completely oblong or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Then I'll just mark out where these are going to be trimmed to.
Do you need a grinder set up in any particular way?
I'll use a slow grinder, 36 grit.
Fresh?
One of the relatively fresh ones. So I just roughly draw something out like that. Time to cut it. Roughly cut, time to grind. My respirator's falling apart. When I'm on the grinder, I don't use the fast grinder. I go half speed, or I use the slow one, or if I'm using the other one, it's basically half speed. And I'm using a fairly fresh 36 grit belt. It doesn't have to be super fresh. It doesn't really matter also. The grind is gonna melt the material just a little bit, especially along the edges. It's just gonna build up a lot of like schluff. It doesn't matter too much as long as you're not like melting the whole thing. When I go to the disc sander, I go from 36 to 120. And on 120, or actually at any grit on the disc sander, I'm going at a much slower speed because now I don't want to melt it. I actually just want to get a clean sanded surface. So I go from 120 really quickly to 320 and then 600. And 600 is pretty good for me. It gives it a nice satin finish. And once I take this thing apart, I'll do nice shiny chamfers all the way around. Got to chamfer everything. It gives it good contrast. All right, timer is going, Sam. We label these all because they're all slightly different, and the worst thing would be like if they were all mismatched. That would be kind of a nightmare. Which one did I just shape? Okay, I've got number 3 all shaped out. So now I'll drill these bigger. I'll do test fitting, get the heel to fit in there, and then I'll take it apart, clean it up, do all the shiny chamfers and stuff like that, and rivet it all together, and it should be done. Okay, now I've punched these holes bigger. I'm gonna do a test fit with the rivet. Look at that. Looks good. Now, some test fits. Get the junk out of there. So before I did this separated assembly process, I would just shove paper towel in there to get most of that stuff out. We'll test it. This is going to cut in and make itself a groove. And you could feel and hear like how stubborn it is to get in there. And I'm basically just gonna put it in and take it out a bunch of times. Gotta be careful taking it out. You don't want to just like slide it out like that. I use my thumb as a brace, basically. That's why I have the heel. Protects the finger. I think that's pretty good. Okay, time to take it apart. This is actually the first time I've ever done it with this temporary assembly process. How's it look on the inside? Oh, that's cool. Sam, you gotta check this out.
Oh, that's cool.
You can see the signature.
Wow. Oh, and the texture and the handle.
Yeah. That's the best fit up we've ever done for a Kydex or a Boltaron sheath.
It's that extra pressure from the press. It's just epic.
Yeah. Wow. The texture's like, you can see the pin. That's so cool. And I can see the little groove that it cut in for that part. I might actually take a scraper and even that out. Oh, this is the way. Now I can clean up all the weird gouges. Cool. Now I will take some sandpaper, wrap it around this stick with cork on it. And I'm just going to deburr any of the outside and inside edges. And then I feel for any remaining burr. I use like the cheapest flaring setup possible. One day maybe I'll get a better one, but this works. I'm just using a little countersink to deburr any of the edges. So the trick with this is to make sure the first few hits are as clean and even as possible. So I hold it all the way at the very base, do a couple tiny taps, and I'm looking where it's starting to flare. And already I'm running into problems. Okay, so another problem I noticed. These rivets I bought have smaller diameter, I don't know what they call them, heads than the original ones that I bought. So the flaring tool that I have is too big for the new rivets. So in this one I'm going to use the old rivets. So this sits much more stable. I hold it at very base, keep it as even as possible. I can feel if it's like tilted one side or another. Now I check, make sure there's no like weird folding over. So it's starting to flare all around these edges, but not this side. So I'm applying more pressure on this side now. And I'm doing that just by biasing the pressure just a little bit more towards my thumb. And it's starting to flare out there now. I could feel it. There we go. So now it's starting to flare all the way around evenly. And once I've started it like that, the rest goes smooth. So I still hold it at the very base, but now I can start tapping it a little bit more. I don't want to go overboard. I just want to get it seated. To me, that looks pretty clean. I kind of like this process. It's not the most efficient, but it is very relaxing, and it actually doesn't take a long time at all. When I've got it all the way at the bottom now I can start basically going around in a circle, tilting it like that. Just to get all the edges around. Okay, 2 middle ones are done. Now it's time to drill at these ones to the bigger size and then rivet the rest. My head camera died.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, wow. All right, sheath is all done. So far, I really like the process of using those temporary Chicago screws. Made it a lot easier to clean inside and out. Sheath turned out really well, super clean. The inside fit up was really cool. And then, ooh. Has a good amount of tension on there. Has a good click. If you have any questions, or actually if you have any tips for Kydex, let me know. I'm still learning. This is fairly new to me. I've only done it a few times before. So far, I like the results. I'm happy with that. You know how I left that piece of wood in the kiln to conduct the heat? Yeah, I forgot it in there, and then I started ramping up the kiln to do some heat treating. and I was wondering what that sizzling noise was, and then I was like, what's that smell? Maybe I shouldn't keep a piece of wood in the kiln.